This is my 1972 Peugeot 204, and if you are not new to the channel, you already know I restored it for the last few years. And if you are new to the channel, welcome, and maybe you will stay after this video. So I wasn't really planning on making this video, but I thought it is a shame that I restored this car for over than 5 years and it still doesn't have any driving experience video or anything like that. And I wanted to make a video to tell you the story of the restoration for the past 5 years, and how it was for me to restore a 50-year-old French car over here in Israel. So before starting the video, I wanted to make 2 disclaimers. First is, as you can tell, I'm not an English speaker, so my English is a little bit broken and not very fluent. I always have cuts in my speech, and also sometimes I can use not very common or not the right words, but I guess you will understand. The second thing is, I'm not a professional mechanic, and not a professional I'm not a professional photographer or even a video editor. It's just a hobby. Everything here is just a hobby. I like old cars. I like doing things with my own hands. Just like I like to fix the cars, I like to take the videos and I like to edit them and show you what's going on. So this is my experience, and let's just start. I want to tell you the story of this 5 years restoration. I hope I won't miss anything during the process. So let's start a wrap. Okay, first thing first, a little bit of what's going on over here. So on the sides of the steering wheel we have the light lever. If I pull it towards me, it's the parking lights. Down, it's the low beam, and inside it's the high beam. Right now let's put it off, and here we have the turning signals, just like any other car, but it's just on the right and not on the left. And this is the most special thing about this car, the shifting lever. So this is first, second, third, fourth, and reverse. The switch is also on the left side, just like Porsche. We have here the hazard lights, the engine bay opener. We have here the choke, fan, and the windscreen wipers. I won't start them right now. Okay, let's start driving. So I put it in first, disengage the parking brake, and start going. So the story of me and the Peugeot start 5 years ago in 2019, just before COVID happened. I graduated my BA degree, and I had some spare time, and I wanted to start messing around with old cars. And I encountered this old Peugeot. Now, before I continue with my story, let me tell you a little bit more about this 204. This is a 1972 model. This is a 1972 model. As you can tell, it's a sedan. It came also in a station wagon, coupe, hatchback, and of course convertible. So I bought it very cheap, and it had some issues, and I figure out I will start addressing the issues one by one, and then I will have a classic car for my own. So the sedan was the most popular ones, especially here in Israel, but those cars usually sold in Europe and in other foreign markets. It was very common in France, and somewhat common here in Israel, although we were a very small country back then in the 70s and 60s. The 204 debuted in 1965, and it was very innovative for that era. The 204 presented a few new things for Peugeot. First of all, front-wheel drive instead of rear-wheel drive like most of the cars back in the day. Also, the brakes were not just drum brakes, not on the rear, but just on the front. The clutch was a hydraulic clutch and not a cable one. The engine, 1.1 liter, have around 50-53 horsepower, and it's actually enough because this car weighs only around 750 or maybe 800 kilograms. If you are from the United States, it's around 2,000 pounds. The 204 quickly became a success in France and also worldwide, and the 304, which shared the same platform, was introduced and sold side by side with the 204, and also when it was discontinued in the late 70s and early 80s. The 204 is a subcompact car, but back in the day it was considered a family car. It has a 4-speed manual transmission, a very easy and nice steering wheel, and a very soft suspension. Although it has a soft suspension, the steering is very precise and you can feel stable and safe during cornering and even on high speeds. This is what's special about those French cars. They always wanted to be special and they did it very good. Stay with me during the story and you will figure out that maybe it was special and good, but it is also mean it is hard time repairing this car, especially 50 years later in a not European country. So back to my story. I bought this car in 2019. With the goal to have a nice little project that won't cost very much, and also this car is very beautiful in my opinion, so I was down with it. The first thing that was addressed, the thing that was stuck, the brakes, the water pump that couldn't let the engine run smoothly, and anything else that need refreshing and rebuilding was done. The clutch cylinders, all the brake cylinders and brake calipers, brake lines, as well as the cooling system, that it was very hard to repair because the thermostat housing made of aluminum just broke down and was very hard to find. So after a few more repairs, like replacing the throttle cable, replacing the carburetor gasket and everything that comes with it, I finally started the engine and it started working. Woo! As I mentioned, it was in the start of COVID, so I also couldn't order stuff from France or any other country that had parts so easily back then. So the engine started working and I continued fixing everything that started falling apart. the shifting linkage. The wiring did a lot of trouble back then, and it took me a lot of time to fix it, but eventually the car was working. Not very nice, but it was enough for driving and passing the MOT. Okay, my camera cut off, so I will continue from the MOT. I passed the MOT and I keep fixing the car. It hadn't have any floor left because it rusted, all the metal rusted down, and it is very, very common on those old cars, old cars in general, but especially this old Peugeot. And I went to a professional, and he just fixed the floor so it would be safer to drive. The seats were also start cracking from the weather and from the years, all those years, and I took them to an upholsterer and he fixed them, but it's actually not my taste, because if you can see, the rear seat have sky, the material is sky, and people nowadays don't use sky when repairing, so it has something like a leather, but not real leather, and it's very hot during summer days, and it's also not breathing material. It does look like the original in the colors, but not in the material, and if I could, I would replace it with original, but I can't. This is actually the biggest problem when coming to restoring old cars in Israel. We are very far away from everything, from Europe, from United States, and big stuff, big pieces can't be shipped so easily, and it can't be even located so easily, because let me tell you, those seats are very rare and even in good condition, and also those door panels. Even though those door panels I shipped from France, it is second hand, of course, because mine was very, very bad. So after I repaired the floor and the seats, I continue have fun with the car, and in late 2022 I decided it is time to take it a step further and just take everything apart. I took everything apart, inside, outside, the interior, the exterior, because the main issue was that when there was rain, there was a lot of water penetrated from the windshield to the floor, and then that's what caused the floor to rot and rust. After I took off the dashboard, I could see the big problem. Everything over here, all the metal that connected the windshield to the frame was rust. There was almost no metal left. So I thought it would be a good idea to take everything apart from the inside, from the outside, and do a full metal work on the car. So after a few months, the car was like new from the outside and the inside, of course. I'm talking about the metal sheets. Everything was restored and welded back together, and then the car painted in red, just like it is now. And I started put everything back together. So I'm talking about the interior, the exterior, the suspension, the brakes, and everything that I took apart. And I also managed to fix some of the things that was not getting any attention in the 3 years before that. So here we are, after I almost restored it completely, and you can see the steering wheel is nice. it's actually not the original steering wheel. This steering wheel is belong to the first model, the 1965 until I think 1969. But I think this version of the steering wheel look much nicer than what I had. I had just a bulky steering wheel with the just like this a plastic cover over here. You can see on the screen right now, and I was not happy with it. Also, this thin steering wheel is very nice to grip, except it looks awesome. It is very classy. The dashboard was replaced as well because it started to crack because of the Israeli heat, and I ordered one in a good condition from France. I still miss a few things. I need to complete 2 panels on the side of the front panel, and the gauge is not working completely. The clock is not working. The speedometer is not working, but I guess the speedometer will never work because it is the gear inside the transmission that is broken, and because it's aluminum inside aluminum, it's just seized inside and you can't take the socket out. And it is also a very common problem on those old Peugeot. As you can also tell, the coolant temperature gauge is way too high, and I was freaking out at first, but then I realized it's just the gauge cluster not showing the right measure. So right now when it's on the start of the red, it's fine, and I'm not freaking out because of it. So overall, I can tell you a few things about the restoration of the car. First, it was a lot longer and a lot expensive than I thought it would be. This is the first thing. The second thing that is a consequence of the first thing I said is that sometimes this is a conflictual relationship. This is a very sometimes you just want to push it over a cliff. Sometimes I want to burn this car to ashes. But when things like that happen, I know I need to take a rest, take a break. Sometimes a week, sometimes a couple of months, sometimes just a day. And then come back with new energy, fresh, and continue working on it, because eventually, when looking back at everything that happened, I can tell you it was worth it. Again, it was a very exhausting and long journey, but eventually I have a car, a restored car. She driving perfect, of course, considering it's considering the model, the era, and also the limitations I have, because in Israel it's not that easy to restore a 50 years old car, which is not common at all, because some parts you can't find, and even if you can find it abroad, you can ship those parts over here without it costing a fortune. One of the most annoying things when restoring a car like this, and I think especially Peugeot and maybe even all French cars from this era, is that they had a lot of changes during the model years. Every 2 or 3 years they changed the gearbox, the engine. They didn't really change it, they just redesigned it and made some changes, but it made a lot of difference. The steering column is not the same, the shifting column is not the same, the engine mounts are not the same. The backlights had like 3 versions. The front light, the front grille, the front bumpers, everything they had to change every 2 or 3 years. And the French guys that are very familiar and very expert on this model actually made a site and made a full detailed table where they showed what exactly the differences between each model. They had a different windshield gasket, they had a different door panels, of course, different center console, and many more different things. So when approaching the restoration of the car, especially the first 2 years before I knew the French site, I ordered the wrong items, the wrong parts. I struggled finding any information online because this car was not sold in the United States, and it's not that common in the United Kingdom as well. So if you have any information about the car, it will be in French or it will be in any other foreign language. And as you can tell already, I'm not the best English speaker and I'm not at all French speaker as well, but I learned to understand some words, written words actually, because there is a big gap between what's written in French and what is and how it's sound, how it's pronounced. So this car not only gave me mechanical experience, it also gave me some linguistic experience. I become friends with people from France, I become friends with people from Germany, from Greece, all around the world, just to find parts for this French car. So that's it. Sorry for my bad English. I just want to share my experience with you. If you like the video, like and subscribe. Considering watching the other 204 videos on the channel, and see you next time.